Of News Conference passed by voters in 1996, Proposition 209 halted the consideration of a person's race, gender, or ethnicity in state hiring, contracts, and admission to the UC and state university systems. But now there's a ballot measure to once again allow the use of affirmative action in California. We have a debate on Proposition 16. Another measure, Prop 20, says we've gone too far in efforts to depopulate prisons and reform the criminal justice system. Backers of the measure say it would reclassify some crimes now considered non-serious, such as sex trafficking, and would give prosecutors greater discretion in seeking prison terms for repeat offenders. We get the two sides on Proposition 20. And an estimated 19 million people have already voted in the 2020 election. But the mail-in ballot is not without its problems. We talk with Michael Alvarez, the co-director of the Caltech MIT Voting Technology Project. Good morning. Welcome to the Tom Brokaw News Center here at Universal City. I'm Conan Nolan. There have been major changes to the criminal statutes in California over the past decade. Proposition 47 and 57 reduced penalties for drug use, making them misdemeanors and no longer felonies. Stealing items worth less than $950 are all misdemeanors, and certain crimes, such as, raping an unconscious woman, are considered nonviolent and are allowed for early release. But Prop 20 would change that. Still, opponents say it is a poorly written ballot measure and would take us backwards when it comes to criminal justice reform. On the yes side of Prop 20 is Michele Hanisee, president of the Association of Deputy District Attorneys for LA County. Representing the no on Prop 20 side is Lenore Anderson, founder and president of Californians for Safety and Justice. She was also a consultant for the mayors of San Francisco and Oakland with regard to criminal justice. So we will start with you, Madam Prosecutor. Why is Prop 20 on the ballot, and what will it do?
Prop 21 is important because it's going to fix some of the unintended consequences of prior laws that were passed, some of the ones that you mentioned, like Prop 47 and 57. And just a prime example is that Prop 57 was advertised to the voters as allowing early release for non-violent offenders. Unfortunately, the way it was written, it's allowing the release of people who were clearly violent offenders. So, for example, someone who throws battery acid in a person's face or stabs a firefighter or rapes a person with use of drugs. Under 57, these are all classified as nonviolent and eligible for early release. And that is not, I don't think, what the voters intended. It also fixes some of the problems of Proposition 47, because again, the way Proposition 47 had some problems. And right now, the way the law is written, a person who commits theft after theft after theft every single day of the week, every single week of the month, gets punished exactly the same as a person who commits a single theft one time only. And it's resulted in a skyrocketing level of shoplifting in the state that's impacting our retailers and grocers and affecting how much we pay when we go to purchase these goods in stores.
Ms. Anderson, why should people vote against it?
Well, first, it's just important for California voters to know that Proposition 20 takes our state in the wrong direction. It's unnecessary to stop crime, and it's harmful to public safety. California is the state that built 20 prisons and only one university over a couple of decades, and that drained resources from things that California voters want to see us prioritize, like health and education. What we have with Prop 20 is an effort to return us to those days of tough on crime when we were overspending on imprisonment and not investing in public safety at the community level. We have the opportunity to go further with criminal justice reform, to invest in mental health treatment and crime prevention, and that's really what Californians should continue to do moving forward. As it relates specifically to stopping the cycle of violent crime, stopping repeat theft crime, this measure is unnecessary because California already has the tools to address those crimes. We have a thick penal code that has plenty of tools that it provides to police and prosecutors to arrest people and detain people and put people in incarceration for repeat acts of crime. What we lack is investment in public safety at the local level in terms of crime prevention and treatment.
I'm listening to this to someone who's never worked in court on a day-to-day basis and had to actually implement the law and handle these cases. And I assure you, it is not quite as she represents. If we had these tools, we've been using them. And some of the fallacies are that we can add up different thefts committed by a person in different shoplifting events and charge them as a felony based on the total amount. The California Courts of Appeal have made it very, very clear we cannot do that. It is not permitted under present law. I also want to point out Prop 20 doesn't change anything about present drug laws. There is no provision in there that changes anything about the way we're treating drug offenders. The reason for dealing with the serial theft offenders, though, is because a lot of drug addicts do steal to support their habits. And in the absence of court intervention, they're simply not going to go into the programs on their own. People who are in the grips of addiction aren't able to do what's in their own best interest, unfortunately. The drugs really change their mentation. There's a lot of studies on that, and they really need some outside intervention to get out of the grips of addiction.
So, Ms. Anderson, let me ask you, though, on Prop 57, I can understand that there are plenty of people who would look at Prop 20 and see things in it they don't like. But when they find out that you can rape a woman who's unconscious and get released early from prison because that's not considered a violent crime, they take a look at that and say, well, wait a second, that doesn't sound right to me. Is that not the Achilles heel of Prop 57?
The specific issue that we have in California is not whether or not we can incarcerate people for horrific crimes for long periods of time. We do that every day in our state by the thousands. The question that is before the voters is, how do we want people to return to society? Do we want people coming home from prison rehabilitated and prepared for release, or do we want them to be worse off? Proposition 57, all the other criminal justice reforms that our state has passed have been long overdue shifts in the culture of imprisonment. It's a shift towards rehabilitation and incentivizing that rehabilitation so that people can be considered for release, not when their excessively long sentence is over, but when they have completed rehabilitation and education. We're not talking about automatic release here. We're talking about people going before the parole board to demonstrate whether or not they're rehabilitated and prepared for release. This is a conservative decision point. The parole board in California reviews these cases very carefully, and what we need to do is incentivize more people. Everyone affected by this is getting out anyways. The question is, how do we want them to return? And what California voters want is for people to return rehabilitated and prepared for release.
The rehabilitation programs are available for those serving state prison sentences. So therefore, the longer they're in, the more rehabilitation they're going to get. The question is, should violent offenders be eligible for the extra early release under Prop 57? These people are not serving their full sentences anyway. Under present law, they only serve 50 to 60% of the actual time that they got sentenced to. But Prop 57 cuts even more time off that. And if you think that throwing battery acid in someone's face, or bombing a church or mosque, or stabbing a firefighter is a nonviolent crime that should be eligible for early release, then that's what you think, and don't vote for Prop 20. And if you think that a multiple serial thief who steals again and again and again should get punished exactly the same as a first-time offender, don't vote for Prop 20. But the reality is it preserves all existing rehabilitation programs and all existing mental health treatment. It doesn't take funding from any other program. What it does is fix those specific problems about some poorly written sections of these laws.
Go ahead, you have the last word.
Proposition 20 does not match with what experts in stopping cycles of crime would tell you to do to address everything from serious and violent crime all the way over to low-level repeat theft. Proposition 20 will return us to the days of tough on crime, excessive spending on imprisonment, and far too many felonies, prohibiting economic mobility.
The measure is Proposition 20 on the November ballot. Michele Hanisee, Lenore Anderson, thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
My pleasure.